I just want people to know that you don't have to be religious. You don't have to be Catholic to go there. You don't have to do or be anything but willing to not talk. And if you've never tried it before, go for a weekend. Take a weekend and just be with yourself.
This is In Good Faith, and we are in the middle of our mini-series on meditation and contemplative worship. This is something I've wondered about for so long. What does it mean not to just sit silently or to meditate, but how is that part of people's worship? And today we're digging into what it means to go to a silent retreat. In this case, even if you don't consider yourself particularly religious. I'm in studio with senior producer Heather Bigley.
Hello.
And also producer Leah King.
Hi, Steve.
And I'm so excited to share this interview with Joan Burda.
Something to listen for in this interview, I would say, is the way that Joan describes how she's feeling at the retreat. She uses a lot of really cool descriptions. You can tell she's a writer, and it's very powerful.
Yeah, Joan is a writer. She's also a retired lawyer, and she writes for online and print publications on a variety of issues, including legal, travel, and retirement planning for the LGBTQ community.
Joan mentions that she first went to a retreat during a time of transition, and that once she had done that, she kept going. And so that's really interesting to me, that it's not just a one-time thing, that she found something here, and we'll dig into this. What do you find at an experience like this that would make you drive hours and hours and go back multiple times? I started off by just asking what she finds special about Holy Cross Abbey as someone who does not belong to a particular religious denomination.
I first heard about Holy Cross from an article in the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and it talked about the fact that, number one, it was a silent retreat, which intrigued me.
Yeah.
And there were no classes. You didn't have to go anywhere or do anything. You could participate in the services with the monks. The brothers, they start at 4:30 in the morning. I have never been to the 4:30 a.m. prayer service. No, ain't going to happen. And so I talked to my spouse, Betsy, and I said, I'd like to do this. I was making a career change at the time, coming from the government, going into private practice. And I thought this would be a good reset. And I don't go for religious reasons or spiritual reasons in the traditional sense. I'm an introvert, so I get my energy from within. And I find that when I'm in large groups of people, they just suck me dry. So in that respect, Holy Cross, the guest house, and just being there is rewarding for me. And I remember the first time I went, when I was finished, when I was leaving, I drove all the way back to Cleveland, which is close to a 6-hour drive, without the radio on.
You continued the silence.
I didn't want the noise. I didn't talk to anybody. I just drove home, and I appreciated that. I don't know about you, Steve, but many of my friends said, you did what for a week?
Yes.
And there was no Wi-Fi. I mean, what did you do all day long? And I said, well, I walked, I sat by the river. The Shenandoah is right there. And now that they've got the natural cemetery, when I was there a year and a half ago, there were just a few graves. Now it's almost full underneath the trees. And they're moving out into the area on the backside, that open air chapel. And it's peaceful and it gives you time to think. And too often I believe that we don't have those opportunities in today's world to just sit and think without being disturbed by notifications and dings and buzzers and all the noise that seems to surround us. And it's why I keep going back. I need that periodically just to sit, and I read, I write when I'm there. And they have told me that a lot of the people who come to Holy Cross are writers. Because, the only rule is let them know if you're not showing up for lunch and dinner, so they don't plan for you or nobody has to wait. But other than that, it's all yours.
That's helpful to me. I did talk to people before I went, and one person in particular said, 4 nights, parts of 5 days of silence, I would lose my mind. And maybe I'm enough of an introvert like you that I thought, I'm actually really looking forward to this. So one of my questions was about routine. When you go there, do you have a daily routine, or maybe is it an escape from a daily routine?
I set out with things that I want to do, and then I find when I get there, the only thing I've got is lunch at noon and dinner at 6:15. My routine is at some point I get up in the morning. I may have breakfast, I may not. I may get up before dawn and go for a walk. Walking before the sun comes up in that area is really weird because I usually wear a
Right.
headlamp because you can't see your hand in front of your face because there's no ambient light. And as I'm walking, and if I turn my head, I'm getting all these eyes looking at me from the trees and the underbrush, which is a little disconcerting. But then it's like, okay, depending on how high they are off the ground, I know whether they're deer or rabbits or raccoons or skunks. And then I read, I sit outside, I go for another walk. I'm almost afraid to tell you all of this because I don't want a bunch of people going there and us not being able to get back in. Because there's only 16 rooms, but it's nice to say you're going to do something and then realize you don't have to. That nobody's going to say, well, you missed this or you didn't come to this. It's another advantage of having a silent retreat. That the conversations are basically, you may say good morning to someone, good evening, good afternoon. At
Yeah.
lunch, do you want water? And there's no small talk. There's no friendships. I mean, you're the only person I have ever seen after I left.
Right, right.
I got spoiled the first few times I went because we had Brother Stephen, who when I first met him, I had checked in, and the check-in used to be a piece of paper on the bulletin board. You just literally checked your name and said, I'm here. And then Brother Stephen would come down to your room and he'd knock and say, you need anything. But when I met him, I
Uh-huh.
thought he was the gardener because he was in a pair of old corduroys and a flannel shirt. And I said, yeah, I'm fine. He said, my name is Stephen. And I went, oh, okay. And then when I came in for dinner, because it was first day, he's in robes and he would read to us from the biography of Thomas Merton or something. And he told the absolute worst jokes. They were so bad, you couldn't help but laugh. And he prided himself on that. And he was there. I know that he's gone now. I know that he's died because he must have been in his 70s when I first started going. And I have not seen him for quite a while. So, and I haven't asked because I don't want confirmation of that fact. I'm kind of hoping he just moved to another abbey and he's just not there anymore.
This is In Good Faith. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Hi, this is Stephen Cap Perry, and I'd love to recommend one of our BYU Radio family of podcasts for you. It's called The Appleseed. It's filled with stories for you and your family. Every episode features really excellent, nationally known storytellers sharing all kinds of folk tales, fairy tales, personal and family stories. It's great to put on and listen to for road trips or bedtime for kids, or anytime you want something to get the whole family not only listening, but then those stories generate conversations. And it's so easy to say, hey, do you have a story about this? Or, oh, that reminds me of when Grandma said, or whatever it might be. Check out the Appleseed podcast. You'll have fun, and you might learn some new stories from your own family members. Welcome back to In Good Faith. I'm speaking with Joan Burda about her experience at a silent retreat at Holy Cross Abbey. You are an author, you're a code breaker, you're a retired lawyer. That's intense, and it's the life of the mind. And I'm wondering, do you connect to a different part of yourself in a silent retreat like that?
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because what I still do as far as law practice is concerned, I'm a volunteer lawyer with Hospice of the Western Reserve here in Cleveland. So I see people literally at the end of their life. I've seen people like who I see on one day and they're gone 48 hours later. And I find that you can have an intellectually stimulating career or job or something where you have to think, and the retreat,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still thinking, but it's a meander. I'll be thinking about something and I look and something else catches my attention. A cat walks across the road. Oh, I wonder who the cat belongs to. It's almost like having a stream of consciousness with yourself. And I have many friends who just cannot believe that I do this and that I keep going back. I suggested it to some folks and they just said, I couldn't do that. And I said, actually, you could. You just have to trust yourself. And I think people who are comfortable with themselves handle it well.
Interesting to put it that way.
And I think people who feel that they must always have somebody around them might give this a try, because you can always leave. You don't have to stay. Yeah. It's not like they lock the doors at night and they don't let us out. We sometimes believe that we are afraid of ourselves, of what we might think. Am I thinking the right things? Because there are so many rules in life. You can't do this because somebody might not like it. Well, when it's just you, if you don't like it, then don't do it. Holy Cross lends itself to doing things you don't normally do. You don't have the opportunity in life. When you're home, you got the laundry. Betsy and I don't have children, but the neighbors stop by, somebody knocks on the door and they're selling something. There's these interruptions. And when you're on the retreat, nobody was going to interfere. And I'm not even sure that's the right word. That I was basically on my own as far as what I wanted to do.
Is there some benefit or some appeal to you that it's connected with a spiritual tradition, that it's an abbey rather than rent a beach house and no one will bother you?
That's a really good question. And I have gone to a hotel. I was on a deadline writing a book and I just needed to get everything together. And I went to a hotel. I just hunkered down, and it was here in Cleveland. So it wasn't like I drove to a beach, and I managed to get things done. But the feel at Holy Cross, there is a sense of calm in that place. And I realized it. I felt it as soon as I drove through the gate. And having been back so many times, I know when I get off of I-80 and I make that left-hand turn and I'm heading towards the turnoff to go to the Abbey, I can feel a physical relaxing, because I know that in a very short period of time, I'm going to be in a situation that is not demanding anything of me. Any demands will be only those that I place on myself. So is it because of the spiritual nature? I don't know. I like to go to Compline, which is the final service of the day, because it is so quiet. And unfortunately, this was the first time I've been at Holy Cross when it was light outside at 7:30. I've never seen the brothers before. Every other time I've been there, and at 7:30, it's already dark.
Oh, so you're just hearing the music.
I'm just hearing that the monks speak and the chants. I'm not seeing them. It's all candlelight. So there's this dark part at the front of the chapel, and you've got I don't know whether they recruit the brothers on the basis of their voices, because their voices are so calming. I explain it to people by saying the prayer is have a good sleep and don't be afraid of the dark. And we're going to do away with the fears of the nighttime. It's pretty much the only service I go to, because I find it to be the perfect end of a day. I was raised Catholic. I don't feel welcome in it. And I'm not very fond of organized religion. There are too many rules. I prefer looking at it as, if you read the 4 Gospels and you follow those, you're fine. So in that respect, I suppose I'm spiritual to a certain extent, but I don't profess any specific dogma. And my spouse has no religious upbringing. And she's even thought about going with me. I think that the calmness that one feels when they're at Holy Cross is palpable. There's something there when you walk through the grounds, go to the river, there's something there. I want to put a name to it or title it.
It's intriguing to me that it's not just that you want to have nobody bother you for a few days. There actually is an element of peace that you find. You mentioned the palpable sense there, and some sort of, whether it's defined or not, some sort of spiritual aspect to it.
Yeah. I think the concept of spirituality and whether one is spiritual or not spiritual is very, very personal.
Yes.
Some people will say, I feel God, however they define God, Allah, Yahweh, whatever anybody's religious background. I think I find a sense of peace when I'm at Holy Cross that I often don't find elsewhere. And I know that I have gone there when things have been particularly disruptive in my life. And I come back in a better frame of mind. What's causing it? I don't know that I want to investigate it too much. I just know it works. And I feel at peace with myself. So I don't need the labels for it. And I've been there where I've been one of the only lay people present. Been a lot of religious order brothers, not a lot of nuns.
Mm-hmm.
There have been a few, but not very many. Mostly it's priests and brothers that have come, which I also find interesting. And I sometimes wonder why more women haven't gone. I'm usually in the minority, which is interesting, but it's not that we socialize. It's not like, they don't have the wine and cheese reception the first night.
I did try and go to every service at least once when I was there, which included, I think, a 3:30 was the time of the...
Oh, was it 3:30? I know.
Because of the seasons. I really loved your experience of being there when you finished the Compline, the last service of the evening. It seems like the darkness would feel like that's just starting to envelop and truly be the end of the day. That just sounds really peaceful.
Yeah, in fact, it was funny was because the word that was popping into my head while you were speaking was envelop, and it's like it's a warm blanket coming around you, coming out of comp, just ready to go to sleep, and it's 8:00 at night, and it's like that's okay, you can still go to bed. Of course, you have to hit the kitchen and see if there's any cookies or dessert. Because, you got to have a cup of tea and a little piece of dessert at the end. But the whole place is so quiet. And I don't know whether you noticed coming in after Compline was the guest house's cat. Did you notice him?
Yes.
Okay. So he's been there for ages. He waits outside the door to be let in. And then his bed is in this little cupboard. And they feed him, and he sleeps overnight inside. And then in the morning, when they come to start getting ready for lunch and that, they let him out. He goes outside. But he sleeps all night, and he's very particular. There's a specific table, and I put his bed out this time because I swear he was tapping his foot and looking at his watch going, where's my bed? It's time. And I had never done that before because usually the bed is already up. But I found it and I put it up and he hopped up, curled up, went to sleep. The next morning, the bed and the cat were both gone and he was back that night. So it's like even a cat that's an outdoor cat knows that it's pleasant to stay in that sunroom area at the front. And I have never felt uncomfortable walking in the dark at Holy Cross. There's just something that makes it safe. There was a American Civil War battle that took place on the grounds. Even from that perspective, when you think of the location and that particular battle of Cold Spring isn't well known, but it was brutal. And there were a lot of young men who were killed on both sides, North and South. The North was drastically outnumbered. It was a battle that never needed to take place. And when I think about that and look at the pastoral nature of what we see now and what happened there in the 1860s, that's sobering. And, if you walk down to the river, you can sit there and it's really quiet there. It's quiet everywhere on the property, but when you get to the river, it's just the sound of the water.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm going to have to try that early morning thing. I am definitely not an early morning person, but.
Well, I got myself there, and I was actually sort of pleasantly surprised that there was no singing of the chants. I guess even the monks think that's
Okay.
too early to sing.
Well, they don't have their singing voices yet. It's too early. It's like, you're lucky I'm up,
Yep.
let alone singing.
That's how it felt. What brings you back? You've talked about it a little bit.
I go back because of the sense of peace. There are times when things just get so, it's almost, volcanic. Everything's bubbling up and I just need time away. And so I don't go every year. That may change now that I'm retired and I can.
I found myself in the dining room with these other people, and we're giving each other our space. And even with passing the waters, often someone would just sort of theatrically hold up the water pitcher like, would you care? And you could nod yes or shake your head no. And so there was interaction, but I found myself thinking, I bet these are really interesting people I'm sitting right next to or across from. And so this is a little extra bonus that I think I left a note by your plate the last day. So it's so kind of you to take time.
I just want people to know that you don't have to be religious. You don't have to be Catholic to go there. You don't have to do or be anything but willing to not talk. And if you've never tried it before, go for a weekend. Take a weekend and just be with yourself.
That was Steve talking to Joan Burda. Something that I loved about this interview was her description of darkness, because I think it contrasts so strongly with what we usually hear. In high school, I went to a girls' camp with my church, and we went on a nature hike around the lake wherever we were staying in northern Wisconsin. And it was nighttime, so it was dark. And she mentioned you could put your hand in front of your face and you wouldn't see it. And that was my experience too when we were on that nature walk. And they encouraged us not to talk to each other and instead to listen to the sounds of nature. And that was really hard as like a 15-year-old to not talk to my friends. But it was really a cool experience to hear God's creations and think about the other creatures that are around us and things that we can't see but are there.
Joan is such a writer. Her descriptions of everything from the story about letting the cat in to the darkness enveloping her, like you mentioned, Leah, all the way to using the word. She's still thinking the whole time, but here at the Abbey, her thoughts meander. What a healthy thing. I'd call it unstringing the bow, so that it still will keep its spring when you need to pick it up again and use it. And I was so impressed with the idea that after her first visit to this unusual thing that she'd never done before, she drives all the way from Virginia home to Cleveland, Ohio, without the radio on. She didn't want to break whatever she had perceived happening. She was carrying it with her. And it made me think, oh yeah, I don't have to go there. I can create this moment, just like Reverend Susan Bentley did, our first guest, in her hospital room. I can make a place in my life that can be for me what this type of retreat can be.
Yeah, the way that Joan describes this retreat reminds me of a pit stop. Like she takes a break from constantly cycling through her life and then pulls over and takes a breath and then continues with her life.
Nice, yeah. Just sitting without notifications and dings and buzzers. And yeah, I think I'm pretty addicted to my phone telling me that I'm important or connected to people and I matter. And just to let go of all that and be just a small thing. What a great idea to have a retreat, even if you can make it in your own room for a few minutes.
I'm really impressed with Joan's curiosity that she would come to a retreat that's, offered by religious people, even though she talks about not feeling welcome within religious institutions. And I like her confidence that, it becomes something that's for her and she's going to come back. And she's not going to be bothered by that religious institution. Instead, she's going to claim the peace that she finds, and she knows that it's for her. And I love that about her.
She says at first she doesn't want to tell too many people about it because she doesn't want the spaces to fill up. But by the end, she's saying, you should go. You should try it for a weekend. And that's how I felt about it. Many thanks to Joan M. Burda for speaking with me. This episode was produced by me, Stephen Cap Perry, and Heather Bigley. Our production team also includes Aaliyah Ebert, Leah King, Katarina Martinich, Josh Orton, and James Sturdivant. Our post-production sound designers are Mark Hansen, Daniel Phillips, and Lauren Sandberg. In Good Faith has committed to the idea that we all benefit from hearing people of widely varying backgrounds sharing their personal experience with faith and belief. In fact, we think people with such experience deserve some of our best listening. If interfaith understanding is important to you, why not leave a comment or a review on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts? That helps spread the word. Find us on Twitter at InGoodFaithPod, Instagram and Facebook at InGoodFaithPodcast. Yet, we have a YouTube page, youtube.com/@in-good-faith. In Good Faith is a production of BYU Radio. I'm Stephen Cap Perry. I hope you'll join me again soon right here in Good Faith.